Well, good morning and welcome to the Sail Racer user guide for Garmin devices. First off, we'll go through a quick overview of the different features of the app, followed by some examples of how to use the race start procedure, waypoint and course navigation, and also how to make your own polar graph. First off, the screen that you will see when you start is the set wind screen. You use this screen to set the wind speed and the wind direction, which is used for the VMG calculations. To set a value in here, you need to hold the watch horizontal like a compass and rotate clockwise or counterclockwise until the desired value is displayed on the face. When you're happy with the value, go ahead and push the start button. Once you've set the speed, you'll then need to point the watch into wind, and you can set the wind axis, which is used in the VMG or the velocity made good calculations. This will take you into the general view of the application. There's a total of 7 views here. There's 3 speed views and there's 3 navigation views, and we'll go through each view and talk about how it's used. So the general view, you're going to see first off, we'll show you at the top there your current track, which is 057 degrees true. Underneath that you've got the local time. On the left hand side we have elapsed time, which is currently 0 miles. If we start recording by pushing the start button here, you'll see the watch will vibrate. You'll see the elapsed time for the recording down the bottom, and it's displayed in red to indicate that it's recording. And after a little while you'll start to see the elapsed the elapsed distance start to increase for that recording. To stop a recording, push the start button again. You've got some options here. We can save, discard, save and exit, or we can exit. Why would you want to save that information? Because you can look in the Garmin Connect app, which is shown here, and you can get a pre-map of where you've gone, which you can play back. You can have a look at the speeds, the elevation, various bits of information, and there's also some custom information down the bottom from this app, which includes the wind axis, which you put in at the start, the wind speed, number of tacks, number of jibes, your best jibe, your best tack, the distance of the recording, and also the maximum speed of the session. So that is why you want to record this session, so you can play back the information later on. Alright, in this case we're going to discard because we don't want to record that. So as I said, that's the elapsed distance on the left. On the right hand side you've got the wind information, and this is telling you your current track is 057 degrees and the wind is plus 173 degrees, and that is, plus means right, so 173 degrees on your right is where the wind is coming from, which is almost straight behind us. In the middle you've got your speed, at the bottom you've got your maximum speed of the session, and on the right hand side you've got your VMG directly into wind. In this case the wind is behind us, so the VMG is negative, and it's almost the same speed as our current speed because the wind is almost straight behind us in this example. Last but not least, down the bottom you've got the elapsed time. Because we stopped the recording, it's gone back to 0 there. Alright, onto the speed views. So this is the first speed view, which just gives you your current speed. Down the bottom you've got your elapsed time again, and that will change from elapsed time to local time. If we have a look at the speed page number 2, it adds in the maximum speed of the session and the current speed underneath. If we have a look at speed view number 3, we're going to get VMG added to the bottom, and again this is negative 16 knots, so it's saying we're pretty much heading straight downwind at the moment, and we still have our time down the bottom that'll change between elapsed time and the actual time. Onto the navigation pages. So at the top you've got your current track, and that's degrees true, 57 degrees. This wind page is all based on the wind, so it's telling you the wind is 173 degrees to the right of where you're going, current speed, and again VMG into wind. Because it's behind us, it's negative in this example. The next page is a GPS waypoint navigation page, and if you don't have a waypoint selected, it's going to say no waypoint. Also, if you've got a problem with your GPS and you don't have a good fix, it will say wait next to the GPS reading. So I'm just going to pop a waypoint in there so you can have a look at what a waypoint looks like. Okay, so I've just selected waypoint ABC, and you can see the title of the waypoint's on the left, it's telling you the waypoint is 26 degrees to the left of where you are going, and you've also got VMG displayed now to the waypoint. Okay, so this is your current speed, this is your velocity made good, which is your speed directly towards waypoint A, B and C. Down the bottom, instead of elapsed distance, you'll have distance remaining to get to the waypoint. In this case it was around 380 nautical miles to get there, or 390 nautical miles. The last nav screen just makes a change with what you've got in the main data there. So you lose the VMG and you've just got the main speed view. Alright, so now let's have a look in the main menu. Set wind feature we've already covered, which is available when the watch first starts up, but anytime you want to update the wind, you can come in here, reset the wind speed, reset the wind direction, and you can see all the calculations will update for where the new wind direction is. We've also got a polar log feature. If we come into this menu, any of the menus that have a lot of words, you can read through the instructions and push the button. If you want to skip the instructions, if you just click on back, it will skip straight to the inside that menu. So the options for that are polar off, instant log if you want to log your maximum speed and heading every second, or average log will filter out some tacks and jibes so that you get a more accurate representation. Or if you're not sure, you can log both and it will produce data for two different polar graphs. We've also got the waypoint menu in here. We can select a waypoint to steer to, we can add, edit waypoints, and we can delete waypoints. Once you've entered some waypoints, you can then create a course. So in the menu you can steer the course, create a course, or you can delete all courses in there. Next we've got the race countdown menu, which we'll come back to in a second. If you change what you're doing and you want to record your activity as a different sort of sport, here's the menu where you can select between kite surfing, windsurfing, sailing, boating, etc. And all that does is when you load your activity up in Garmin Connect, it will give you the right sport written at the top of the page. Last but not least, we have the tack setting menu. What the tack setting does is the watch will automatically detect whenever you do a tack or a jibe, and it will measure the angle that you tacked through so that you can have a look at the end of the session. Once you're in this menu, you can turn it off if you don't like it, or you can set a filter for the minimum speed that you need to be doing for it to register the tack. That might be helpful if you're on a large boat and you're running across the deck and the boat's not going very fast. It might start recording false tacks or false jibes. So generally for me, you want to set this close to the sort of speed that you're doing when you're going upwind or downwind. If we now go back into the race countdown menu, this is just the race countdown timer, and it will also initiate the race countdown function. So we come in here, we'd select however many minutes we want to go. Let's say we're gonna get the 10-minute gun or the 10-minute flag. Okay, and once you come back into the main view, you'll see a couple of the displays have changed to this picture here, which says Set Start A. It's one of the navigation screens and one of the speed screens. What we want to do is sail past the start line about one boat length to leeward, and we're going to click on Start as we get right next to that first mark. Then we're going to sail to the other end of the start line and repeat the process, clicking Start again to set Start B. And then we've got the countdown that we selected, which when we see the flag or the gun, we can go ahead and click and it'll start the countdown. It also vibrates every minute, and 30 seconds to go, 20 seconds to go, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But if we have a look at the other menu, you can see we've got some speed cues up here. Okay, so at the top of the display is your current boat speed, in this case 17.8 knots, and at the bottom of the display is the speed that you need to do right now directly at the start line in order to get there with time equals 0. So he'd need to slow down, point at the start line, slow down to 0.5 knots, and he'd get there exactly at time equals 0. Let's pull up a picture to have a look at what we just did. So here's the start line. with start A and start B are both ends of the start line. You've got the first mark up here and you've got the wind direction up there. So once you've entered the race countdown mode, you'll sail your boat next to one end where it says start A, push start, go along to the other end. When it says set start B, we'll push the start button again. That'll save the location of the start line. What the watch does next depends on where you are. If you're hanging out off the end of the start line in this area here, the top of the display will show you boat speed required to hit that closest marker there, start B, at time equals 0, and it's going to also show you what your actual boat speed is. If you're hanging out in this area here, downwind of the start line, it's going to show you the velocity of the VMG directly into wind to the closest point to hit the start line at time equals 0, but it's also going to show you your actual VMG down the bottom, and it will automatically change over depending on whereabouts you are near the start line. As far as what you need to do with the display is just make sure that this top number matches this bottom number, and you'll hit the time at 0 time to go. So that's the race countdown mode. As with before, we can update this by clicking on start when it's within sort of 10 seconds to go of the nearest minute, and that will reset your elapsed time remaining. Alright, let's have a look at the waypoint feature. Waypoints format must be in decimal degrees, which we've got shown there, and as it says, south and west are negative and north and east need to be positive, and you need to click OK to set the values there. So we can go in here and add a new waypoint, put a name in, we'll call it AAAA. Then we need to enter the latitude, call it 23.0. And we need to enter the longitude, we'll call it 131 degrees. Okay, so we've just added that waypoint. If we want to now steer to the waypoint, go into the steer to waypoint menu. We can scroll up or down through the waypoints that you've got listed. There's the one that we just added, and if we click go, we'll now be steering to that waypoint, which we can see there, and the information we get is up the top. The waypoint name is 32 degrees to the right, and it's 5,500 miles away in this case. If you've finished putting in a bunch of waypoints and you want to create a course, in the courses menu we go into new course. We then just scroll up and down and click on the waypoints that we want to add. So let's say we want to add ABC, DEF, and the watch will vibrate every time you add a waypoint. If you make a mistake here, the best thing to do is to push the back button, and that will exit without saving. IJK, and then we want to go back to the first waypoint, ABC, and then once we're happy we just scroll through and it'll ask us, do you want to save the course? Push start, and that is yes, and now we can name the course, and we'll just call it course, call it course H. Okay, so we've put a course in. To steer the course, we go into the steer course menu. The first letter that you see down the bottom there is the name of the course. So in this case, that is course A. That's course P, and we just entered H, which is that one. So we're going to click on go, and it's steering us to the first waypoint. Again, ABC, 26 degrees to the left, 390 miles away. And when you get to within approximately 100 meters of the mark, it's going to automatically select the next waypoint in the sequence, and it'll keep going through all the waypoints until you've finished the race there. If you do want to get out of that and just select another waypoint, you can always come back into the waypoint menu and click on steer the waypoint, select whatever waypoint you happen to want it to go to, and it will direct you back directly to whatever waypoint you've selected there. So that's the waypoint menu. Alright, the last thing to have a look at is the polar data. We access that by going into the polar log, and this basically explains what you need to do. So to enable the polar log, first you need to plug your watch into a PC, and we need to go into the Windows Explorer and navigate into the Garmin apps folder and figure out what the name of the application is. Once we know what the name of the application is, for example, it could be something like what's written at the top there, we're going to create a blank text file with exactly the same name, and we're going to drag that text file and paste it in the apps log folder. And what that will do is it will remain in there, and if we select polar data recording on, then the polar data is going to be written into that file there. So if we have a look, so this is my watch here. If you go into the Garmin folder, apps, this file here is the actual program, and how I know it's the program is I look at the date modified, and that was the day that I installed the last version. And so what you do is just click on the name, copy on your desktop, create a text file and paste that name into the text file, and then you're going to come into this folder here which says logs, which I've already done earlier, and I've created the log file there, so it's the same name. If you open the log file, it's going to look like this when it's got data in there, and what this is I've turned on the instant polar data and also the 5-second average polar data. So the way that we get this data and we turn it into a graph is just to highlight till we get to the end of the data row there, and they're all the instant speeds. Right click copy. If you open up an Excel tab, we can click on right click paste, and then this little paste option thing will pop up. If we open up the text import wizard, on the second page we've got a comma that separates all the values, so we need to select comma. Sorry, we've got a comma that's used to separate all the values. So this was the first page, we just click next onto the second page, we're going to box comma, and then we can click on finish, and it's just gone ahead and it's pasted all of our data there. The other thing we want to do is attach some headings, and the headings always start at 1, so we're just going to drag that to the right, and it should have taken 360 readings for every heading. There we go, 360. Okay, and now we're going to highlight the whole lot to create our polar graph. Right quick analysis. That didn't work for some reason. Let's try that again. Right quick analysis, charts, more, and we want the radar chart, and there's a few options here for what you can choose, but we'll just pick this one. And there's our chart of our polar data, and you can fiddle around with this, but more or less what this is telling you is this is the rings are the speeds in knots, so you've got 1 knot, 2 knots, 3 knots, 4 knots, and around the outside is the compass rose effectively. So looking at this, the wind was maybe coming from here somewhere, 340, and so you can pretty easily see what your tacking angle is, and you can also see what the best speed is for you to be going upwind or downwind when you're actually doing your racing. So that's all the features of the watch. If you've got any comments, then feel free to send them through to me on the Garmin webpage, and good luck.